Wanted to talk today about the different ways that here at Costner Building Group that we present dream homes to our clients. So we have our traditional building a custom home for a client where they come in and we figure everything out with them that is going to be their exact dream home. A lot of times that looks like the client walks through the door and they have an idea. A lot of times the family has different ideas on what that home will look like and how that will be, and we help through that process. And then we also have spec homes that we have both somewhat finished and ready to go, and that doesn't mean that we have even started building the home. That means that we have specs that we have already have a design done, and we have different finishes in that we have pre-selected, and we can tell you, hey, you know what, this one's about a 1.6, this one's about a $2 million build out, but we don't know until we extract the information from you how you want that home changed. I never had a client walk through the door and say, I want that one, that is perfect, exactly how I want to go, and make no changes, everything, just whatever you want, and go build it. There are builders out there that is their specialty. And then we also have another product offering of we go ahead and we spec build a house. And so we build a house the way that we think it needs to be built with all the building science that we traditionally put into the custom builds, but we do it as a speculative build and we build it up and then we'll sell it. Typically at that point, we try to sell it once the drywall is installed so that the client can get some of their finishing touches. They can pick, typically the tile's already selected, the flooring's already selected because it's already on order and it's arriving to the job. The countertops may be able to be tweaked depending on when the client comes in. The paint colors on the interior may or may not be able to tweak depending on when the client comes in, the specialties, but there's some decisions that the client can still ultimately make. I've also had clients say, you know what, I realize you've ordered this, I think that's great, but I don't want it. See if they can take it back, and we call and we'll cancel part of the order. And a lot of times our vendors, because we use them over and over again, will accept that. So there's different avenues that we can get you. And so the custom home, where you walk in and it's, I want to build my dream home, we could be planning that home longer than it actually takes us to build. So, that relationship with a client is typically 2 to 3 years. Something where it's semi, here's a spec that we haven't started, but here's the plan, here's some of the selections, and you just need to tweak a few of that. That one, depending on the tweaks, it could be a 16-month type relationship, maybe 14, 16 months from walking through the door to you're moving into your home, and then building a spec home where we've already started building it. If you acquire it and, once the drywall, and so you're very early in that once we initially put it on the market, that relationship could be 4 to 6 months before you move into your home. And so the speed in which you can move into your home varies greatly depending on which path you choose. We would love to have more speculative projects put up for our clients to build, but the capacity that we have, and we love building for our clients and going on the entire journey with them. So, typically we have about 1 to 2 a year in which we have in that model, and the rest are through these other 2 phases. And so today we're going to kind of be diving deep into what the custom home journey looks like so that people understand, why is it so much longer? What am I getting by taking longer to get into my home? And so today, let's dive into that and figure it out. We have 4 main phases when building a custom home for a client. The first phase is pre-construction planning. And so the first step in any good plan is the introduction. And so we have a quick 30-minute phone call, just saying hello, and then we set up a discovery meeting. And that meeting typically lasts about an hour to an hour and a half, where we'll meet either at, if you already have purchased a lot, typically we'll meet at the lot, or we'll meet in our office or someplace that's convenient for you. And we will go over what your dreams are for your home. And we'll find out what is important. But a lot of times when we have that meeting, you end up walking away with more homework than you showed up with, because there's information that we're gonna need to understand. And there's some good exercises that we have found that it is best for you to go back and to plan and to think about it, and as a family come together and really think about what you want in your home and make a list of wants, needs, and desires. And so be very honest about what those wants, those needs, and those desires are. And desires are, if money is no object, well, this is what we're getting. And so that could be an outdoor pavilion with a pool and an outdoor grill space and all the fun stuff that comes, or it could be, I saw in this kitchen where they had, two kitchens. They had a clean kitchen and a dirty kitchen. And so we see that that's our desire. And so maybe we look at that and we look at the budget and, we need all this space and we need all these other things. And so we can talk about, okay, hey, how can we get close to that desire with something that's more affordable? And for example, of the, two kitchens, what if we did a scullery where we had like a working kitchen and then we had more of like a show area that didn't have, your stove and all that. It was a clean kitchen, but it was where you presented the food. But maybe that doesn't work because you don't do as much entertaining in your everyday life as I'm cleaning. So you have a prep area, which can be in the scullery, but you can also use the kitchen for your prep area. And so it kind of mirrors those two different things. But there's a lot of different decisions like that we're gonna talk about. How are you going to use the space? And so we take your needs and, obviously we need to have that included in the home. And the wants and the desires, how do we pull those things in? And how can we be thoughtful through the design? And it's easy when we haven't started building to have those conversations. It's easy to change when we haven't started building. And so everything is fluid and on the paper. And when we're having that discovery conversation, we work with a number of different architecture firms and designers here in the local Charlotte area, as well as some that service our region from afar. And based upon what we hear from you, we can make some recommendations on who would be a good fit for you. Who do we think that we work well with, that we think you would also work well with? And then we set up some meetings with them. And you have a discovery meeting with them. And so maybe it's 2 or 3 different firms that you're gonna go meet with, or whether it be virtual or in person, and we sit in on those as well. Together, we come up with, hey, let's award ABC architecture firm this contract to build or to design your dream home. And so we walk that journey with you. We also present a professional services agreement that will outline all the different steps that we're going to undertake during the pre-construction process and a fee for that journey. And that fee is credited on the first pay app at construction, provided it goes forward. However, if at the end of the pre-construction process, you decide, you know what, Marshall, we're not ready to build a home, or you know what, you just weren't the right fit, that's fine, completely fine. Maybe we look at you guys and like, you know what, this isn't the right fit for us. We think you'd be better serviced by this other contractor. Here's a few that we think are great fits. It has to be a mutual beneficial relationship for us to move forward, for you to move forward with us. And so if at the end of that we say, that's not it, this is not a good relationship for us. We don't want to put that stress on you guys or ourselves. We want to make sure that it works. We'll retain that fee and you can go forward and build with somebody else. Now, many contractors across the nation, they charge for their architecture plan, and so they keep it in-house, whether they even sub it out or if they design it in their house. And when you're at the end of that and you're like, well, I don't want to work with you, well, you got to scrap that entire plan. That house that you've been dreaming about for the past 6 months, 12 months, 16 months, all that thought and process that you have put into it, all that thought and process that the builder put into it is just gone. You can't do anything with it because the builder owns the rights of the plans. You would have to get the builder to agree to release that, and a lot of times there's an additional payment for that. I don't think that's the right way to do business. So that's why we have you hold the contract with the architecture firm. That's why we have you hold the contract with the structural engineer. That's why we have you hold the contract with the mechanical engineer. That's why we have you hold the contract with the civil engineer. All of those plans will have your name on them. You will hold the license to that. The schedules that we make, you are free to share. The specifications that we make, you are free to share. The details that we help the architects come up with for your home, you are free to share. And you can have the home built just as we have designed, just as we have been planning, just as you have been dreaming about with anybody else. If the relationship doesn't work, if you don't want to move forward with this. And we have that there because we want to make sure that there's not a power imbalance in the relationship, that we are in it together and that we are cohesive and walking through the journey together. And we just think it's the right way to do it. So once the architect is selected or the designer is selected and you make that initial deposit for them to get designing, that is when we accept the professional services agreement money and you have that professional services contract with us. And we move on to phase 2 of the pre-construction process, which is design development. Design development, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start looking at some of the exterior selections. What do you think the outside of this is going to look like? Do you want a brick home? Do you want a stone home? Do you want lap siding? Do you want it to look like a farmhouse? Do you want it to look like a European Tudor? What do you want your home to look like? Do you want it to be modern? Well, you may say, I want it to be modern, but one of your family members feels very strong about it being traditional. And so we help you work through that, and we come up with some solutions. And maybe you don't know. And we help with that as well. And the architect, we lean heavily on them to help on that as well. And so they'll start drawing and they'll come up with a floor plan. And typically there's 2 or 3 different floor plans that they'll present to you. You look at floor plans that you have found online and you tell us what you like about this, what you like about that, and they try to morph it into be your exact home. And while we're simultaneously trying to figure out what you want in that home. But it's also often that we'll be like, well, maybe it's 80% brick and it's 20% lap, but maybe the lap is cedar shake. Maybe it is traditional, just, 9-inch or 7¼ inch reveal lap siding, or 9-inch, or whatever you want it to be. Or maybe it is board and batten, like whatever you want it to be. And so we can price those different options for you. And it's a very conceptual estimate where we do take off and we figure out, hey, this is 1,000 square feet times a unit rate. Boom, this is what this would be. Brick, it would be this, and we give it to you. It's a very high level estimate. And so I like to say, we're flying a plane over your house. And when it's in design development, we are in a helicopter. We're not in an airplane. So we stop and we hover over it and we're looking down at it. And we're flying the helicopter and we're getting kind of close, but we're still way up in the air. And so we're making a lot of assumptions because we haven't got all the details out of you, and we give it to you. And so the confidence that we have in that number is about 75%. We are 75% confident. We could build you a house for what we have just told you. Is it your house? We don't know yet. We don't know enough information. We haven't got that knowledge out of your brain. We haven't got your family to agree to what your house is yet to give it to you. But we're 75% confident that that's what it's going to be. And then we continue to move forward. A lot of times at this point, we may stay in a little bit of a feedback loop and we'll keep circling because we're determining, that plan, we just didn't love it the more we thought about it, or we didn't like this about it. And so then we kind of tweak it, or maybe we're really struggling on the outside and we need some more help. And so sometimes it's the right time to bring in a designer who all they do is help select materials. And so we bring that into the fold. But a lot of this path at this point is dictated by what you as a family need. Some people need more help than others in making decisions for their home. Some people know exactly what they want and they don't want to see a bunch of different options. But in custom, it can be anything you can think of. And think about every house you've ever driven by. They all look a little bit different most of the time. What do you want it to be? And so that's what we have to get from you. But also, a lot of times, and it's just human nature, you want more than you can afford. And so we have to help parlay both what you want with what you can afford and make decisions that are helpful to the budget. But then at the same time, what we have found is a lot of times people will say, I really have to have a stone house or whatever it is, and I'm willing to pay more for it. And that's fine as well. We're happy for that to be the decision. We just want to make sure that we're educating our clients on what their decisions that they're making and what the cost implications are. And if it's something that they want, then we're happy to give that to them. Once the conceptual design is done, we move into design development. And this is a milestone within phase 2, but it is still within the main umbrella of the design. And this is when we know basically what the floor plan is going to look like, basically what the outside is going to look like, and we move into that next step. And so the design firm has basically locked that in. And so now it's time to engage some of the additional members of the design team that haven't been brought in, being the structural engineer and the mechanical engineer. And so they will look at the plan and they will say, I need the mechanical room to be here. We're going to have trouble with loads on this door, window, whatever it may be, but they look at it and give some high level insight into it. The design firm continues to work and really nails down what the shape in the outside of the home is. And we start working more on what are the plumbing fixtures? What does the flooring look like? What are you thinking the lighting's gonna be. And so you start going to different supply houses and looking, and because it's custom, you could be getting tile here locally. You could be importing tile from Italy. You could be importing tile from wherever you want. Recently, we had a client who was vacationing in Switzerland and snapped a picture of a bathtub and told us that that was the bathtub that they wanted in their house. And so we had to go find it. And so we're happy to do that for clients. And part of custom is there's something cool and crazy I saw traveling the world, and I snapped a few pictures of it, and we chase it down and see if we can find either that or something extremely close, so that our clients are excited to be moving into their home. And we are used to tracking down some random something for our clients. That is part of the process and something that we enjoy. Like, how do you find a Swiss bathtub? Well, with enough information, you can find anything now with the internet. And so we were able to get it shipped over here. And the client is going to be able to have a bath in their Swiss bathtub. But we have to get all that information out of you. And so as we have seen our clients go through this journey, a lot of times when the journey starts, you think you know what you want, but as you're walking through life, now all of a sudden, all of these great ideas are coming to you. You notice that Swiss bathtub when you're on vacation. You notice your friends have this really cool lanai. You notice that your friends have this really cool stove. Or you're walking through the store and you see something and you're like, oh, I love that color. I want that in my office, or I want that in my bedroom. Or I saw this really cool picture as I was watching this TV show and I paused it and I snapped a picture and I sent it to you because I want my bed framed out with a niche behind it that looks really cool from this TV show that I saw. And so we put all those details into the drawings. And when we're in this phase now, that's the phase when it's easy to put it in and it doesn't really affect too much. When we're building the home and we have the foundation up, we have the framing up, and we're putting the drywall on, and then you tell us that you want the wall frame slightly different because you want to have this niche in it, that's great. But now we got to rip the wall down that we just built and build you a new wall and make sure that it works with the overall plan of the home, because a lot of times you have mechanicals running through it, you have electrical, you have plumbing, you have other things in that wall. And that wall serves more than just one function of holding up your house, it has another function. So it's more difficult, it costs more money. So at this phase is when we love getting all these really cool ideas and putting it in paper. And it allows us to be more efficient when we're actually building your home, because we're giving you exactly what you want. Once we get the design back from the design firm, we do another round of budgeting and we give that to you. We talked about, the helicopter. Well, now we're walking around on the ground. We have something we're looking at. We have some plans. We have some specifications in our hands, and we're walking around the house and we walk through it and we get a better idea. And so our confidence gets up to 90-95%, depending on how much information we're able to extract that is going to stay. And the reason I say that's going to stay is because we have also found that as clients continue to walk around life, knowing that they're on this journey, there's other cool stuff that they see that they would like to be added in. And so all of that takes time and energy, slows everything down, costs more money. But if we were to just stay on the path, we're at a 95% confidence. Something is changing, I'm dropping back down to 90. It changes drastically, I'm dropping down to 80, 70, 60, depends on how much of a change. We built a garage for somebody one time that was more of a man cave than it was a garage, and we got it framed up, and he saw something really cool when he was at a restaurant, and he just loved those windows, and he decided that he had to have those windows. And the windows that we had included were fine, they were gonna be nice. They weren't those windows that he had just saw, he wanted those windows. Well, the windows he just saw had a significant intolerance for deflection. And so that meant that we couldn't use wood, we had to use steel. And we already had it framed up, which means we had to tear it down because we had to put new footers in that were much larger. And he was fine with it because he wanted those windows that badly that he paid for that. And that's probably the most extreme example that we have ever incurred of, we had a structure completely framed up that was brand new, ready to go, and a client said, no, knock it down, do new foundation, build it back up so I can have these windows. That doesn't always happen, but it's hard to say that, are we gonna stick to our original budget then? No, that original budget basically got thrown away, thrown on fire, and we handed him a brand new one, and he signed off on it and said, yep, sure, let's go, let's move forward. And he got the man cave that he wanted at the end. And so that's why the custom process, a lot of times it's hard for us to predict how long is it gonna take, because what we're building is evolving. And it evolves from the day that you walk through the door to the day that we turn over the keys. And so we do all of this discovery throughout, whether it be probably 8 months at the fastest we've ever done it, to 16 months to 2 years. So we minimize those later discoveries and the opportunity as you walk through life that you can see more things and get those cool little goodies into your home. But we realize that you're gonna see something really cool and you're gonna want it put in while we're doing something else. And that is okay. Just know that it's gonna cost money and it's gonna cost time. We'll get it there. And as long as everybody understands that it's gonna cost money and it's gonna cost time, then we're happy to do it. And going back to the pre-construction process, once the design development is done, we go into construction documentation. Construction documentation is the final drawings that are getting ready for permitting, which permitting kicks off phase 3, and it's a fun, exciting time. We also are continuing to nail down exactly what everything is. And in an ideal world, we have like a 20-page document that has what color the walls are gonna be, what the flooring material is gonna be, what windows are you using, what type of sashes are they, what color are they on the inside, what color on the outside, what type of doors are we using? Are they solid core, hollow core, stile and rail? What color hinges are you using? What about the hardware, the hinges? What about the handles? What about your door stops? There's a lot of different types. Now, when you buy a semi-custom or even production built, like all those decisions are made, and a lot of clients are like, there's 1,000,001 decisions to make on a custom home. Yes, because I am building a custom home exactly for you, and so everything is your decision. Where if you buy a spec or something else, like there's not many decisions. It's, do you want this door or that door? Well, the hinges and the handles and all that, it's already picked out for you. That you only have a few options. In custom, it's what do you want the door to look like? It can look like anything you want it to be. What shape do you want it? You want it to be a rectangle? That's what most people pick, but it doesn't have to be. You can have arches at the top. You can have all sorts of fun stuff. Note that if you get outside of what traditionally you see, it costs a lot more money, right? So we just have to be aware of that. Happy to price all those different options out for you so that we are both being a friend to the budget, but also making sure that we get those needs, wants, and desires into your home. And so at this point, once we have that entire documentation put together, once we have a schedule built out that is gonna tell us how we're getting, from clearing the lot to digging the footings, to framing, installing the tile, painting, cleaning, turning it over to you, all those different phases, and that is a huge schedule, probably with 60, 70 different line items in it that is specific to your home. Once we have all that information, we send that out to our sub-trade partners. Once we send it out to our sub-trade partners, this is typically the 3rd or 4th time that some of them have already seen the plans, but for others, it may be the first time that they're seeing it. And so a great example of that is while the lumber yards have been telling us what the market has been dictating recently, they don't take a deep dive into it to know how many sticks are in that home, how many 2x4x96, how many 2x6s, how many 2x8s, how many LVLs, what size LVLs, are they double, triple, what type are they? All that hasn't been figured out until now. And so they have to send it to their team and they do their takeoff on it and they send it back to us. But in doing all of that, it can take 2 to 3 weeks just for them to figure that out and send it back to us at how much it's gonna cost for them to supply the framing package to us. Well, then I have to go through that and make sure that we think that it's correct. And so we read it, we know the specs, we read our specs that we wrote, and we make sure, did they pick the correct subfloor? Did they pick the correct sheathing? Did they include the correct adhesive for the type of sheathing or the type of subfloor that we have? Because we are a system-based approach, and so we want to make sure that if we are using Advantech, then we have all Huber-based products. If we are using LP, then we want to have all LP-based products. Because if there's a problem, we want to make sure that we have single source responsibility, and it's much easier to take care of that problem when there's single source responsibility versus everybody pointing, who's at fault? It's not me, it's the other guy. So we like to have single source. In doing so, we have to review it. So it can take us 3 to 4, sometimes even 5 weeks, depending on how busy the market is, to get that construction estimate once the construction documentation is completely put together. Once we have that construction documentation and we submit it to you, typically we like to send it to you and you have a chance to digest it for about 24 hours before you come and actually sit and have a long meeting with us. That long meeting typically is 2 to 4 hours. And It is also not uncommon for us to send you the proposal, and then by the time you walk through the door, the proposal is slightly different again. And that is because we continue to work it until we have that meeting. And when we have that meeting, we present it to you again, and we have a lot of times value management ideas. And a value management idea doesn't necessarily mean that we're making something more affordable. Maybe we are. Maybe we know that one of your desires is to have roll down screens and vinyl on it, but we know that your budget was $2 million and the house is already at 2.2, so the vinyl is as a value management idea, and it could be 10, 12,000, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is on how big your porch is or wherever it's supposed to be. And so we have that as a value management idea because we knew that it was in your desires, it wasn't in your needs, it wasn't in your wants, it's your desires. So there it is on your value management tracker. So we go through those, make sure that what we have included in your home is exactly what you wanted, and that we all are in agreement on what you're wanting on the home. And so then we can sign the contract and say, this is what we're building. So just keeping it simple, this is a $1.5 million home. You're signing your contract at 1.5 and everything's moving forward. And it says exactly what is included in that home. And there's also things that were on your desires that are off, that are rejected on the value management tracker, and we cross it out and write rejected. So it is very clear exactly what you get. And then your contract at that point is, we start out with like a 12-page contract that balloons to over 100 pages because there's a lot of documentation and backup that goes in that to clearly explain exactly what you're getting. We typically run through that prior to this meeting so you know exactly what it looks like, and we'll send it to you electronically so you can sign it in your own free time. So while we're in this meeting, we're mainly focusing on what is included in your home and what is not included in your home so you understand what we're about to embark on. At the signing of that contract, typically we take a 10% deposit upon your home. That 10% deposit, you are credited from the Preconstruction Services Agreement, so it's 10% minus whatever the PSA was, and we file for permitting. And that starts phase 3 of the pre-construction process, which is permitting. So permitting, depending on where we are, whether we're doing Mecklenburg County, whether we're doing York, South Carolina, wherever we're doing, can vary drastically. You can have a permit in a week, you can have a permit in 3 weeks, you could have a permit in months. It all depends on what we're doing, where we are, and what we have to go through. So a lot of times during that time, it is very rare that at the end of that meeting, the client will sign the contract and they will say, but I want to change A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so we have to then go price out those. And so a lot of times we'll have a signed contract, but we have, 4 or 5 open change orders where we'll go ahead and put it into our project management system, just going to continue to pick on the vinyl, where we put, change the color of the vinyl or decrease the scope or increase the scope or whatever it is, and we have to go back to our vendor and say, hey, what would it be if you did this? And so maybe instead of the vinyl, being on all 4 walls, you just want it on 2. And so we go back and say, hey, just put it on the 2 walls. How much would it be? And then we present that information to you. Or maybe you say, you know what, I want to add in, whatever it may be. We will price that in and present that information to you. But it's not going to affect, hey, are we going to clear the lot? Where is the house sitting on the lot? And so we can go ahead and get started on all that stuff while we're waiting on the permit. So once we get the permit, it will kick off phase 4. And so phase 3 is actually usually rather quick. Usually we're in it about a month. That's about typical. And then once we get the permit, we will mobilize. Typically it takes about a week, sometimes 2, to mobilize, and that is, getting the crews on site, get it cleared, get the erosion sediment control put up, and then, we're off. And as soon as we're doing that, that is phase 4, which is construction. Phase 4 of construction can vary wildly on, what type of home are you building, how big is the home, how detailed is the home. We have built some of our smaller homes that have actually taken longer because they're extremely detail oriented. And so, those homes that have lots of fun little details take time. You cannot go fast on something that is extremely detailed. Sometimes when the house is big and open, it's rather quick. You just put it up and you can keep going. It's also bigger, so I can put more labor into it. I can have more people there working. And when you have more people, many hands make quick work. So we can actually go a little bit more quick. But when you get to the finishing touches, once again, it slows down because details take time. And we want to make sure that we get those details right for you. So we take the time to do it. So construction can take anywhere from 10 months to 16 months, 2 years, depending on what we're building. So, if you're in this process with us from beginning to end, you could be 16 months, you could be 2, 3, 4 years. There are clients that have been with us that long. And once they move in, we love to see their faces light up as they walk through the door. Typically, it's not when they're moving in. We try to stay away we understand that is a huge pressure moment. We want to make sure that we got everything nice and clean. We got it cleared out. Here, go move into your home. But we do love to come back once you've settled in a little bit, say, hey, how's it going? And see that smile on their face and say, you know what, I am so thrilled with my house. We were talking to a client just last week that was saying, you know what, I love getting my morning coffee and coming and standing right here, looking out at the front yard in my beautiful new home, seeing the landscaping. It makes me so happy. Thank you. We love hearing that. That is why we do what we do, is so that when the clients wake up in the morning and they walk out into their home, they feel like this is their dream home. And we love doing that. We love giving that to you. We'd love to have you on this journey. If you'd like to know more, please reach out, like, subscribe, share, and we'll talk to you soon.